I don't know what's so funny, viewers.
Hmm. Yeah.
I hope my sound is better this evening. We've had a complaint.
But it is better. You sound fantastic. I can hear your northern accent in all its glory.
My northern accent.
Yes.
Right.
Aren't you from the north?
I'm from the north.
Yeah, you're from the north like David Tennant.
Right.
Do you not like David Tennant?
David Tennant, I'm sure, is wonderful.
Okay.
Anyway, in a blur.
In a blur.
We are speaking of seeing in a blur.
Well, it's kind of always that every week, but yes.
Mm. I have been thinking about what the value is in not seeing.
Okay.
And I've also been thinking about how many episodes of these shows we do, and where there's a kind of self-consciousness about the content of what I put for us to discuss. And I realized when we were talking last week about Dwayne Michaels that actually, even though your other show, which is obviously far superior and far more successful than this one, um, I've always rather tried to move away from that format in which you discuss just one photographer, right, or one
Hmm.
image. And when we discussed Dwayne Michaels last week, I thought, why am I not talking about the photographers that I really love? And that doesn't mean that I haven't talked with you about work I think is fantastic, but it does mean that we've really rather shied away from going into just one person's work as much as perhaps I otherwise might, if that makes
Great.
sense. So, fuck it.
Hmm.
Uta Barth, here we come,
Hmm.
which is why it's called In a Blur.
Okay.
And the question, what's the value in not seeing?
Do you think that there's the less you can see, the more you can the less explicit it is, the more of a mirror it is?
Well,
The less you see, the more questions.
yeah, I mean, that's all very,
Art School 101.
yeah, it is.
Yeah,
I expect more from you, Bill. Come on.
I'm working on it. As we
Um,
said, just woke up for a nap.
well,
But yes.
so I have actually been talking to my students this week about this
Okay.
question and related to Uta Barth. And Uta Barth is one of my most favourite photographers, I think, in terms of how I feel and respond when I see her work.
Hmm.
But her entire body of work, her canon of photographs is always so kind of vague. Like I'm not sure what kind of purchase I have on them in a broad sense. But what I know is that I am engaged always in what I see. And this is some of her very early work, period between 1979 and 1982.
Can you hold on for 1 second? What did you just said? You said you don't know if you have purchase on her work. Is that the term you use?
Mm.
Do you think the people who make work like this, sometimes it feels, well, I mean, there's people who make work like this that is deliberate, and then there's sort of the the miners of the world who go around looking for this kind of thing, right? Um, do you think that they have purchase on their own work?
Who? Who are the minors?
Well, I mean, the people who are going around sort of trying to find interesting things around them, and they see them and they capture them, but they're not creating them from whole cloth. They're sort of editing out reality into something that we see, right?
Mm.
Versus someone who's incredibly deliberate, like the Dan Wintersy kind of person, who like every single thing about it is controlled to the nth degree. people who work like this, does serendipity own some of the image?
Well, again, Dwayne Michaels last week, we talked about this too.
Sure.
The element of the accidental. And
Yeah.
but still, as with Michaels, actually, the interest in the moment before and the moment after and the thing that happens in between is controlled in as much as it's buffered by intention. But
Hmm.
the thing itself has got its own freedom. Uh, you know, there's nothing incongruous about this image because it's familiar.
Hmm.
Yet there's something um, of otherness in it enough that I spend time with it. I know everything about this photograph in that I recognize those feet. They're obviously not feet I really recognize, but nonetheless, they
You're
are.
like Aunt Joe, you know.
No, no, but just Barth's images is are rather a tour through experience and perception, right? And
Okay.
everything you can read about it, Barth talks about how she's invested in perception as the act. She's making photographs that are about perception, not the perception of something, right?
Okay. Yes.
I'm familiar with this, but I'm removed enough that I'm fascinated by it.
Yeah. It almost feels like meta intention to me. I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just, again, it's similar to Dwayne. It's just not how I see the world, so I have a hard time grasping it, you know? Like, I love both of these images, and yet they irk me in ways that I like it. It's like somebody who's OCD who moves a book and can't stand not moving the book back. That's how these images feel to me, in a fantastic way, but it's so interesting. Do they not? Do you feel settled with them, or do they feel like they're off kilter?
I feel like somebody literally is giving me a sedative.
Yeah. Oh, a sedative. Interesting.
Yeah, I feel so calm.
Oh, see, no, I go the other way.
Of course you do, Bill.
Yeah.
Um, they really are kind of in a lovely way, in a kind of like a weighted blanket sort of way. They're kind of heavy on my air. They're compressing me. They are
Yeah.
slowing me down.
It's so interesting. It's like to me they're just off enough, whether it's the composition or the focus, of course, or whatever, that it feels like they are out from right.
Yeah, I mean the kind of
They're
destabilizing.
unright. They're not wrong. They're just unright. You know what I mean? And it like irks me.
I think you're addicted to being irked.
Oh,
And
I'm irked occasionally.
yeah, what I was saying about this kind of destabilization of human vision is a really powerful tool. But even though she's destabilizing an expectation of what something will look like we expect to see and we expect to have our vision um, finished for us by the
Okay.
photograph. And I think she goes beyond the finish line. So the camera is taking visual information and translating it because the artist is in charge. But again, this idea of me being in charge, and I know it is so art schooly to say it, but I am in charge of how I finish the image. And
As a
and
viewer.
I can choose to refine it in my mind. And what I find interesting about it is I'm not refining it in a way that brings it into focus actually, visually, in my mind's eye.
Mhm.
Rather, I'm finishing it through a kind of, a bringing together of other senses that seem to be stimulated by seeing. And even though, as I said, it's very calming and like a weighted blanket, it brings me down in the best way. I don't mean brings me down, makes me sad. It doesn't make me sad at all. It it just finds a moment, I think.
Grounds you?
Finds a moment. Yeah.
It,
I mean,
you mean it almost in like in a synesthesia kind of way that like you have like your other senses perk up from it?
absolutely.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm. And the cleverness in a lot of her work is that, we are brought into, well, into focus. Something is sharpened while something is blunted or taken away. And to not see what's in the background is as if I am becoming, I don't know, just self-contained enough that I can
Yeah.
pause.
See, I look at the background and I think, is anything back there or is everything back there? You know, could it be anything that is there or is it everything that's there entirely is there? Does that make sense? It's like a difference between it's not a selective anything, it's a inclusive everything.
Well, there's a lovely a quote. I can't remember if it who it was. Maybe somebody at Getty Museum, LA, somewhere,
Mhm.
talking about Barth's work as everything and nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, she says herself, I keep trying to find ways to shift the viewer's attention away from the object they're looking at and toward their own perceptual process.
Right. It's so there is a sense there that it's not about basically she's saying it's not about what I'm saying, it's about what you're seeing.
I'm 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 asking myself if what Barth is doing is giving my own process of seeing credence ahead of hers, or even that it's not positional, that I just have this space in her work to find out for myself.
Yeah.
Mm. Over and
I,
over. I mean, this is what's so great about it as well. We're looking at a series of photographs that I've chosen. I mean, she does also work in series a lot herself. So there'll be field number 9. I mean, you see on them, they've got
yeah,
numbers,
to
a lot of
42.
them.
Yeah.
It's because she's doing very similar things over and over. This kind of repetitive um, nature of her work is interesting to me as well. By the way, just going back to that one, it's two Vermeer paintings in the background.
Yeah, it looks like the milkmaid or the sewing lady or whatever they are. Yeah.
Um, it's women engaged in like repetitive tasks, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think
What
it's so
uh
great.
do do you know how big she prints them? I don't think I've ever seen them in real life.
I've definitely seen them in real life. I'm trying to think where.
But not
Um,
a she's not one of those giganto printers.
Probably 30 by 40 inches.
Inches. Oh, so big. Okay.
They're not going to be small, snapshot size images.
Yeah.
There's lots of painterly qualities in them. It would be wrong not to mention it. I mean, not least because she's including other people's paintings, the Vermeer paintings of the milkmaid, and I wrote it down, the lace maker.
I mean, yeah, there it is.
Mm.
The use of just sort of I want to say it's negative space. It's not negative space because there's stuff there, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like sort of like the leaning on the emptiness of the bokeh out of focus stuff is, and even in the first one, like leaning on more of the floor and less of the curtain. You
Yeah, but
know?
also we've got that neat line.
Oh yeah, which almost looks like neon because it's so overexposed.
You know, what is the photographer's world, drawing with light? She really is spindling out whole narratives of nothing with this light weaving, this way of just suffusing everything with an intense sense of light,
It
which
does
sounds
feel though, yeah,
ridiculous and trite, but is actually the case. There are photographers where we're looking and we're just kind of invested in a kind of series of geometries and shapes, whereas with this, it's like a suffusion of something that seems much more expansive than simple shapes compressing a space.
yeah,
Um,
and the I mean the color too. It's like they're so subtle. It's
I find them profoundly beautiful.
no, they're absolutely lovely. It's just I am envious of someone who could see the world this way, in the same way that I'm envious of the way um what's his name from last week?
Dwayne
Blank.
Michaels.
Dwayne Michaels, thank you.
Don't you see the
What?
world this way, Bill?
No, I do not. I see the world in boxes and straight lines and structure and alignment and parallels. Like that's what my brain wants to do. When I'm shooting, even if something is like not lined up right, I will line it up in post production because I want it to feel tidy. Like, for example, the line of the window or the door behind you is
Mm.
just a scooch off from vertical. If I took a picture of this right now, I would fix that in post before I finish that image. And it's just the way I think I just find the world so chaotic. I want to put some order on it in order to feel less adrift. And images like this are hauntingly beautiful, but make me feel adrift. And you're
Well,
going to say, I like feeling adrift. That's what I'm going for, right?
of course, I mean, the inevitability of our discussions, isn't that always so lovely?
The
It-
fact that we disagree or the fact that you like being adrift.
It's lovely that you and I, through our correspondence, see the same things
Yeah.
and that we can share in each other's experiences, even if we don't necessarily experience those things ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm.
It makes me want to try things like this, though.
This is the other thing I wonder about, all through art college, I did make work like this. And I developed work where, my practice is color printing, as I've
Sure.
spoken about before, and working quite a large scale, trying to understand the nature of color. And, color for me is perhaps more potent than I think other people register
Mm-hmm.
for themselves. And uh,
More potent than composition for you?
yeah, I mean, I find it overwhelming, too much color. We've spoken about this before, it's
Yeah.
something that just really, I have to
Lacks.
manage quite carefully in my life, actually, color.
Sure. It's like
Um,
me with smells and migraines.
hmm. Yeah, I would
I
imagine
get
it's.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
Well, actually, I think I probably get overwhelmed quite easily by. But that's never really stopped me from wanting to consume these images. But I find these images, as I said, very restful. They calm me down. They're the kind of thing like, somebody would give another person a smelling salt or something to revive them.
Mm-hmm.
I find something reviving in these because they actually calm me down. So, for example, if I've had a really manic day and I've had hordes of teenagers vying for my attention or being mean in class or whatever it is, it's been noisy and, sound all the time, everything happening. This is as if I just enter a zone of complete quiet. That's what goes on here. And anyway, this is the last one in
Mm.
our little series for tonight. This is of the work I've shown, the most recent photograph in this little presentation.
It goes back to the squiggly line across.
Yes, and I think again, someone makes their life's work about, scrutinizing or trying to discover what it means to make photographs and to see. And when they're particularly interested in the actual perceptual journey or process, this is seeing as experience.
There's also, I mean, there's something about the way that that light goes across is very reminiscent of sort of a sound wave. So I also to your synesthesia your synesthesia comment that I bounced on earlier. It's like to me, it's like I can almost hear this
Mm.
because of that.
Can you slowly look at anything?
Um, No,
Mm.
I don't have that much attention.
Slowly and quietly go into the photograph.
You trying to hypnotize me right now?
No, I'm just saying that that's.
Hey, Darren Brown. Ever tell you
I
about the
just,
time I hung out with Darren Brown? That was
oh
weird.
God, not honestly, Bill, seriously, stop showing off. It's just
No, no, no,
ugly.
no. Yeah, I'll tell you later. It's funny. Uh,
Well, from something that was peaceful
that
and
one's beautiful.
subtle to something that's absolutely the opposite of those things. Thanks for finishing us on Darren Brown. That's
Who doesn't
truly
like
wonderful.
Darren Brown? Thank you, Sandy. These are absolutely beautiful. Seriously. I need to dive back into this body of work and go deeper and take my time looking at them.
I won't hold my breath.
You might. This is going to be good.
Bye, Bill.
Bye, Sandy.